Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished colleagues and friends, welcome to the 19th episode of our webinar series titled Charting a Lasting Peace in Myanmar. Today's discussion is titled Seeding Peace, the People and the Homeland-Myanmar Peace Process, delivered by Professor Dr. Amina Mohsin of Dhaka University, Bangladesh. As we gather here, it is important to situate Myanmar's struggle for peace within the broader landscape of contemporary peace processes. Around the world, conflict affected societies have demonstrated that peace is not merely an agreement signed at a table, it is painstaking process of compromise, recognition, and building trust. Before I start the webinar, let me do the treaty recognition. The institute is based on the original lands of Anishinaabe Cree, Oji Cree, Dakota, and Dene peoples, and on the homelands of Metis Nation. We all are treaty people, and we are all promise bound to work together in the true spirit of truth and reconciliation. The audience, it is morning in Winnipeg and early evening in Bangladesh. We have planned this episode to talk to an expert who is able to give us some ideas and throw light on this peace process. And as I was saying in the beginning, that all the peace processes are unique in nature because conflict and the stakeholders that they deal with, these are unique situations. For example, the Good Friday Agreement in Northern Ireland was possibly only because parties long opposed to one another, the Unionists and the Republicans, recognized that no one side could secure outright victory. Both were willing to concede long held positions for the sake of a shared future. That process was anchored in inclusivity, backed by guarantees, and reinforced by the everyday willingness of political leaders and citizens to walk a new path. And as I was saying, that this kind of peace processes has a unique trajectory to follow. So, similarly, in Colombia, the peace accord with the FARC was forged after a half century of conflict, yet its implementation reminds us that without society buy in, peace remains fragile. South Africa's transition away from apartheid also teaches us that transformative peace requires courageous leadership, but also a readiness by groups to acknowledge historic injustices and move towards reconciliation. Nepal's constitutional transition, though imperfect, illustrates how insurgents and political elites can reimagine a state together. Myanmar, however, remains at the epicenter of a conflict where such concessions and willingness to compromise are largely absent. The entrenched position of the military, the fragmented ethnic armed organizations, and the lack of trust across communities have left the peace process stalled. And yet, while Myanmar struggles internally, the consequences are borne externally. Bangladesh has become the worst sufferer, hosting nearly 1 million displaced Rohingyas in Cox's Bazar since 2017. Just last month, Bangladesh convened a 3 day international summit in Cox's Bazar under the leadership of Chief Advisor Dr. Muhammad Yunus. The summit produced 7 points of demand, ranging from recognition of the Rohingya right to return to broader international burden sharing. What stood out, however, was the clarity of the Rohingyas themselves. They seek not indefinite relief but the restoration of their rights and homeland. Their insistence echoes the lesson of every successful peace process that durable solutions must center on the people most affected. And yet, we must be honest, the international community has not come up with a credible model of intervention in Myanmar so far. ASEAN's much discussed 5 point consensus has failed to shift realities on the ground. The United Nations, despite repeated resolutions, has not managed to create either a binding enforcement mechanism or a political framework for meaningful repatriation. Humanitarian aid continues to flow, but aid is not a substitute for justice, nor does it address the fundamental question of return. In effect, regional and global actors have managed the crisis, but they have not solved it. The audience. The world now looks ahead to September 30th, when the United Nations will host a high level meeting on the Rohingya crisis. But this raises difficult questions too. What outcomes can we realistically expect out of the situation? Will there be a genuine pathway to return, or merely another round of diplomatic statements? And most critically, how can Myanmar's own people, its majority and minority communities alike, be brought into a process that they own and that compels both sides to make the difficult concessions that lasting peace always demands? These questions frame our discussions today, dear audience. Peace is not imported nor imposed. It must be seeded in the soil of the homeland, owned by its people, and watered by the courage to compromise. It is in this context that we are honored today to welcome Professor Dr. Amina Mohsin, a distinguished scholar and the voice of conscience, to lead us through today's reflections on the Myanmar peace process, centered on the people, their homeland, and their aspirations for a just and lasting peace. And it is my privilege to read her bio. She is a former professor of the Department of International Relations, University of Dhaka, and currently an adjunct faculty at the Department of History and Philosophy, North South University, also based in Dhaka, Bangladesh. She graduated from the department and later received MA and PhD from University of Hawaii and Cambridge University. She has received several national and international fellowships, including Eastwood Center Graduate Fellowship, SIDA International Fellowship, Commonwealth Staff Fellowship, and Freedom Foundation Fellowship. She writes on rights and gender and minority, state democracy, civil military relations and borders, and human security issues. She's a published author. She wrote many books and journal articles to her credit. And I think the last one she wrote is about Of the Nation Born, edited with Hamida Hussein. No, this is in 2016. My apology. So, as you see, the audience, she's a distinguished author and speaker. And my humble reflection of interacting with her goes back to 2004, actually, when I was a student in Defense Services Command and Staff course. I was sitting amongst the students in the audience when she was invited to speak. So that was my very humble, reflection. Professor Amina Mohsin, very welcome to on the stage. And as I welcome you, the audience, it is also happy to note our director, founding director, Dr. Hilal Mohiuddin, is also with us this morning. Dr. Hilal, welcome as well. Nice to see you again. So, Professor Amina Mohsin, as we planned today, we are going to listen to you uninterrupted. Feel free to speak as long as you want, because that is the most important part. And then Dr. Hilal and I will engage in a round of question and answer. And also, we'll be watching our social media space to see if we have any questions. Floor is yours, ma'am. Go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you very much for inviting me to this platform and to let me speak on a topic which is very close to my heart in the sense that I get very emotional while talking about it. And also, I congratulate you for working on this particular topic because this is something which involves rights issues, which is something I have been working on for years and decades now. I would like to thank you again for this invitation. You know, like uh, at this point, uh, let me start with a journey. I would say that this is a journey that I took uh, back in 2017 when the Rohingyas started fleeing from Myanmar and entering Bangladesh. And we could see all the pictures, all over the media. These were there. And at that time, um I mean, back in, I started going to the Rohingya camps right in December 2017, and I must acknowledge and thank Dr. Meghna Guha Chakurta over here in this platform because she made me, she created a space for me or that allowed me to go in and talk to the Rohingya Rohingyas. And I started off by talking with the Rohingya women because I thought, the voices of the women and children were very important. Of course, men were also included. It's not in a formal setting because they were not in a state of mind to do that at that point of time. But I have been going off and on then, since then, in the Rohingya camps. But what I'm particularly talking about today is based on my experience in the camps and of an engagement with the Rohingya people, particularly with the women, and to some extent, I would say children also, from 2017 onwards. And my last visit to the camps was in January 2024. So while talking to them, like what struck me most is, their yearning for land. And here I would like to bring in, this was on, there were several FGDs that I had done along with Dr. Meghna Guho Thakurta in January 2024. And while talking to the women, uh, the question, if I make a quote, from three quotes, and a young girl said to me, a girl in her late 20s or early 30s, she said to me very clearly that no matter where I live, my country will always be Burma. They use the word Burma, will always be Burma, because Burma is my homeland. I was born there. And she also further mentioned that it's not only that, no matter where I'm taken, I would always want to be buried in uh, Burma, back in my own land. So this is of a young girl. I mean, in her late 20s, she said this to me. Again, I'm saying that this is based on an FGD, and this was January 2024. Then talking to an elderly woman who was like in her late 60s, she said to me, "Look, I have spent almost 5, 6 years over here, and maybe I'm going to live for another 5, 6 years, and then I would be dead. But I want to be buried in my own land, and which is Myanmar." And she meant, of course, I mean, I'm saying Myanmar, but she said Burma, which is Burma. And then I was talking to this other group of women in another camp in Tiknaf. The first two FGDs were in Kutupalung camp. This is in Tiknaf. And she said that, look, I mean, she was relatively young, and she was saying that, we have faced so much persecution in Myanmar, but still we want to go back. And I would want also, I would want to be buried in my own land. And the women in general kept on saying to me that they want to go back to their homes, they want to go back to their land. And they were saying Janmo Bhumi, this kind of, which is, where you are born, under the soil. And at that point, I it took me back to a very, I would say, heart wrenching conversation that I had with a woman in 2017. She said to me that I could not even give a proper burial to my son. I don't know. Just left him there, so I don't know what happened to him. Then there is this other woman, this I'm talking of 2017. She said the same thing to me, that I could not even give a proper burial to my husband. Then it occurred to me and it struck to me that, and I'm talking of a, like a journey from 2017 to 2024, that burial is something very important to them, that where you are buried. And I did not, of course, ask them this question, but I just probed it more into it. And I said that, why do you want to be there? Why don't you want to be, resettled in another country? They said it's fine if we are resettled in another country, but we would want to be buried in our own land because that is our soil, that is our land, and we want to go back to our homes. And at that point, I also pointed out to them that, your homes have been burned, your houses have been burned. And then the women, all of them say together, but our bhita is there. Bhita meaning homestead. So they were making a difference, or they were drawing a line between home and homestead. And they were saying to me, okay, even if the houses have been burned, we can build them again, but the soil is ours. And we bought this soil, we bought this land with our own money. So this is our place. So it and this is where we belong. So the sense of belonging was very important for them. And when one talks of burial, uh, they also talked about their ancestors, their stories, their memories. And very emotionally, they said to me that, look, this is the land of our ancestors. They are buried there, and that soil is very important for us. Mati, they kept on saying mati, mati, mitti. They kept on repeating these words. In the Rohingya language, they have many words from the Urdu language and the Persian language also from the Chittagonian language, how cultures intermix. So this is what they said. And this yearning to go back to their home, and the drawing the lines between home and homeland, and that of, like homestead, that made me feel that how important it is for them, because for them it is not only about going back to a land. That land is not a mere piece of land for them or a habitat for them. It is about their dignity. It is an assertion of their rights. It is linked with their identity, and it is also linked with their history, that about and linked with their ancestors. And they do not want to be, they do not want their history and her stories to be wiped out, because they are linked to that land. And they made it very clear to me that, look, we want to go back, we want to be buried there, our children. And like this thing about, uh, could not give a proper burial to my son, could not give a proper burial to my husband. So one realizes that even in the because they are quite orthodox Muslims, so in Islam, burial, a proper rituals of burial, it is an important part of not only healing but also closure. So this closure they need, not only for themselves but also for the people, they or the dead ones, and their relatives. So it's a very emotional thing that they are talking about. And they also said, I mean, I'm just quoting directly from them. They kept on mentioning to me that how important it is for them to is to give their dead back the dignity. That struck me as something very important, that dignity is something, dignity, honor, it is something that is so important. I mean, and that's why they were constantly insisting upon going back and being buried there, or having a proper burial for their for the people uh, who were uh, who were killed by the Myanmar army in 2017. So this is what they kept on repeating. So in a way, it translates itself, not only about your dignity, it is also about your history, it is about your identity, it is about dignity, about honor. And they also pointed out that they felt humiliated by what has happened to them. So, like I would like to mix the emotions of humiliation, dignity, honor. I mean, these are classic cases where you see that when a genocide takes place, people try to wipe out a people by taking away their honor, their dignity, and humiliating them. And women become very strong markers of this honor, dignity, shame. I mean, we have seen that happening in the 1971 genocide in Bangladesh also, how women were raped. And this is what we find in the Myanmar case also. And men and women, they all talk in general about the dailiness of their lives, like how they miss the fish, the vegetables that they grew. They mentioned the river flowing, which they said daria. Daria is an Urdu word, but I guess in Rohingya language, or they also used daria, and they said that we miss the smell of the air. So these are very emotional things. And here I would like to bring in, like how one looks at borders. That is very important. Uh, because as I said that they were talking about homeland, that land is not a mere piece of land or habitat, but an emotional space for them. And also one has to look at the politics of space over here, that how space, it can be an empowering factor for you, and it can also be a very disempowering factor for them, for humans, because cooped up, as you know well, as you are well aware, Professor Kausar, that in the Kutupalong camps and in Chiknaf, so there are about 34 camps, uh, and which are like they live in very congested conditions, which are not exactly what one would say very human or human conditions. And all these sufferings are there. But within that space, like it is a very disempowering experience for them. And also because many of them come from upper middle class and middle class families. When they narrated these stories, they talked about the businesses that they had back in Burma. So those things are there. And by the way, this is an intergenerational thing that is going on. The conversations are going on between them and among them, and it's an intergenerational thing. And the Rohingyas who had come in the 90s and also in the 80s, uh, young girls told me that their aunties, young girls who were born in Bangladesh, they said that their aunties, the mothers, their grandmothers keep on telling them these stories so that they do not forget their past. So these memories and are very important for them. And so, when I say the politics of space, what was empowering is that within those spaces, narrow spaces, they were in their imagination building up or creating a land where a homeland where they would go back one day. And they were keeping these alive through their emotions. And this is an emotional journey, very emotional, not something that one is displaced physically. When one is displaced forcibly, one is also displaced mentally. So I would say that in situations like this, because I've worked with other refugee situations also, that there is a politics of physical space and there is a politics of cognitive space as well. So there is this voice creation that I see emerging, or rather, it has emerged within the Rohingya women. And also, if you talk to the children who are quite grown up now, there is a voice. I mean, they do talk about things very openly. It's not that they shy away for saying or talking about things. So these are they talk about it very openly. So, and here I would like to bring in Sarah Smith's idea of intimate geographies. This is a feminist idea of geopolitics and how you look at borders and geography, which she talks about, and which the feminists also now talk about a lot. That when you talk about geopolitical politics, um, uh, it is better to use a hyphen, because geography is not only a piece of land, but it is a space. And when you translate border into borderlands, it becomes a home. It becomes an area where people they habitate, where they live together, and there are many things, which people do together, because they also talked of their interactions with mm, uh, the Rakhine community, how they interacted in the marketplaces, children going to schools, though it was not a very happy experience for them, but they did talk about those things. So talking to them, when they talk about these things, and when one brings in the idea of uh, emotions and intimate geographies, I mean, you can bring about a paradigm shift in the way you look at borders, in the way you look at geopolitics, and it is also like bridging a gap, uh, or between what we call high politics and low politics. High politics is, of course, where the state comes in very strongly. It is very gendered, and also it is something where women are usually not part of it. If you look at the world today, only about 7% of the world leadership constitutes of women. So, but if we bring in women's voices and women leadership and involve them in the peace processes, I think, and also the civil society, because there are civil society organizations which are in Myanmar today, which are working across the border. And if we start this process of negotiations or dialogue between them, I think it is very important to look at how the grassroots or the community people look at them. And you talk about intimate geographies, that this is the land, the soil, and the homestead. And the important thing is to sensitize the policymakers about the emotions that are involved, about the rituals that are involved, what constitutes a people, that one cannot wipe out people just like that. And that is something that one needs to factor in. And this voice creation of women, I think, is very important. And like they talk about their identities very openly. Uh, they want to send their children for a higher education now, uh, both boys and girls. But back in 2017, they were not talking of sending their children for higher education, particularly not sending their girls for higher education, because they thought it was a sin. Now they don't think that it is a sin. They think that, like one woman said to me, I want both my sons and daughters to be ilimdar. Ilimdar means one who has education. And this, I would say that, a lot of NGO as well as civil society and INGO activities have gone in the camps of um, in Cox's Bazar. So that's why I say that you have to look at the politics of space also. While the space is limited, but the physical space is limited, but the cognitive spaces are opening up. And the if you can, um, uh, the aspiration, the dream to live on and to acquire higher education, to go back to their homeland one day, the land, the soil. Uh, those are very important critical issues. This, I would say, this is emotional geography. But emotions are an important factor of human life. Both men and women are, they are emotional beings. and human beings are all emotional. So it is important that in the policy processes, if we factor in the emotions, the sentiments of and the voices of the grassroots people, and involve them in the peace building process. And here I just want to talk a little bit about the Women, Peace and Security agenda, like the WPS, Security Council Resolution number 1325, which talks about the involvement of women in the peace processes. So one needs to have a conception, of what constitutes peace for women, what constitutes security for women. From what I gathered from my field experiences, is that they want a secured life for them, they want their dignity. They, of course, identity is a factor for them, but one can also take an incremental step. And one can, this is where I think the homestead, and the land becomes very critical for them. And one just has to think differently about the notion of borders, and also make a dent or bridge into the notion of border, that instead of looking at the borders as a territory, as something which is also a space for human coexistence. I will just stop here. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor. Such an enlightening discussion, and you have really covered, many grounds, and which are all important and relevant, even for our project when we look at the resolution of conflict in Myanmar. I think a couple of things stand out from your discussion. One is the conception of border, the politics of border, and very rightfully you mentioned about women empowerment. Not even during the conflict in Myanmar when it was occurring since 70s, but also after 2017 when they forcefully displaced. And this is something quite extraordinary that we noticed from your speeches, that the Women, Peace and Security Agenda 1325, when we mentioned that we need to involve women in the peace talks, peace dialogues, and conflict resolution, and how much is really we are seeing in terms of Myanmar. So that is one of the questions. So we are coming back to you and get and pick your brain. What do you suggest? How it should be done? But nonetheless, we are going to have a question and answer session, and I'd like to invite Dr. Hilal first to sort of kickstart the Q&A part of it. Dr. Hilal, if you are involved in this research since 2017, being part of CRRIC, and you had been teaching in NSU as well. So, what do you have in terms of women, peace, security, and conflict resolution in Myanmar? And please go ahead and kindly engage Professor Amina Mohsin.
Assalamu alaikum. Appa, you may not know me,
That's
but I
nice.
know you very well. I am sorry I may not speak properly today because I got cold, some strange sort of cold. I traveled back to Winnipeg from the USA. I'm teaching there now at Mayville State University. So my family lives in Winnipeg. I am a Winnipegger. That's why I have to do these driving jobs every week. I do that with a lot of peace and happiness, but this time this happiness turned into a kind of pain, though. So it's a little bit difficult for me to speak today. But thank you very much once again, Appa, for joining us, especially CRRIC's webinar. We have been reflecting on Myanmar issues from so many different dimensions over the last years, from 2017 onward, and we did not stop until now. And probably we won't stop until we see a real credible solution to the Myanmar crisis. We know that it's not easy thing. So I also had spent quite some time in Rohingya camps. We conducted 3-4 different studies, one for my university's purpose, another one was funded by Rotary International, Rotary Global Grants. Another one was MCIC funded, and the other one was BRAC's research on protective security. And we covered a lot of gender aspects that really matches with your finding, the same findings. But there are some other dimensions too that we found there that I don't know whether you have seen that. It might sound surprising to you. We conducted many case studies and focus group discussions on adolescents, young folks, and we have found that one of the biggest problems there lie with the adolescent boys more than girls. Girls are benefited in so many different ways. They're being empowered. They know about entitlement. They know about empowerment. They know about the worth of education, getting involved into some kind of self-reliance processes and measures that international NGOs, national NGOs, government operatives, and many other, actors are trying to support them with. So they are quite fine with that, and they are having a worldly experience in so many different ways. Still, of course, whatever you have mentioned today, they have that strong urge to go back to their motherland and that sense of homestead, homeland, motherland. And we understand being immigrant in this country, still every day we feel like going back to our country, Bangladesh, given in quite advantageous situation compared to those people still. So what they can think, we understand that. So one link that I needed to learn from you about the adolescent boys, did you have any chance to talk to them? Because they are the, to our observation, we might be wrong, very wrong. Maybe now the situation has changed completely. So they are the least attended segments in the Rohingya camps. And it is really becoming a big problem. Most of the things are becoming way heavily overemphasized on gender issues. We also did that. And then we came out the findings that there is a missing thing and we could not really bridge that gap. This is why we need to connect the dots. The young adolescent folks, boys especially, are the least attended. We don't have any programs, NGOs have don't any support services for them. International organizations are not looking at them. Their parents are, they sometimes they don't have parents, just the guardians, some secondary guardians, other people who are taking care of them. Probably their mother, father are dead, and they are just living with distant relatives. So these boys are there, and they are list attended. They don't. No one cares about their You know, um, I mean, protective security. At the same time, reproductive rights. Boys have the same sort of reproductive age needs like girls, but there is no care at all. Other people are not paying attention to them, and they are spared like stray dogs in the street. They can go anywhere. People are thinking that okay, boys can take risk. That predominant male macho, you know, attitude in society that boys will build their own fate. They will take care of themselves. They don't need uh, much attention. So the preconditions, mental psychological preconditions, gender stereotypes that we had. Men don't cry, men can take care of themselves, women need more support. Still they are going through the support services and support system. I was really questioning how much they're being, they were standing on their own feet. Like we ran two schools there experimentally with Prantik, and another one was with another organization. Now I forgot their name. The first one that we did the MCIC program with them. So we ran two schools, and we also focused on girls, adolescent girls. And at some point, those girls came out with some pretty strange questions. That okay, now funding is gone, your program is over and we are going back home. Probably we will be going to other. We heard a lot of stories about repetition, redundancy. That all of the BRAC is doing that education program, others are doing education program. Sometimes these girls are going to different programs, like 1 hour, 2 hours spending in our schools and then going back to BRAC schools because they were getting incentives, different types of incentives. So there are complaints and allegations against them that they were taking advantage of those. But we found different scenario. They told that, oh, you hear everything, but there are concrete rules. It's not redundancy, it's not repetition. Although the government people, they try to blame this way the NGOs, especially the camping church, CICs, the government officials, they tend to label the programs like there are a lot of redundancies going on, and in most of the meetings, joint meetings, they were raising that question that all these programs are, especially education program, was redundant. But the girls, especially one that we did last for BRAC, protective security of the adolescents, they are young girls. They told that the scenario is somewhat different because we are empowered only on one way, not thinking much about going back to our country or other places, but to live a better life in as many ways as possible. And this is why we are now thinking about just making money, whatever way it's possible. Education, it's sex trade, it is going into prostitution or whatever. We don't care because we need money for supporting it. We are getting married early, we are getting baby, and we are also in other different types of disadvantages. So these were just in-depth reflection when we had some in-depth sessions with them. They conducted those sessions. We were not there. Men were not there. We just led some of our women facilitators to stay with them. They were anonymous. That's why they came up with some sensitive information, and that really intrigued us at last. That the way we are thinking about the gender relations, like with bigger frameworks, entitlement, disentitlement, empowerment, disenfranchisement, but they're looking at the very grassroots level, everyday life, livelihood realities, and they are tying their situation with those things. And in our findings, we asked most of them, okay, what's your intention to go back? Because you have seen it, you are the first-hand observers and victims of those perpetrations. You were forced out of your country. You came. You have seen the atrocities they have committed. So out of that, what do you feel? What about your country? And we got somewhat different. I don't know who are your target groups, like probably adolescent, not adolescents, maybe the adult ones, those who have more attachment with their country. The adolescents, they came at very young age, maybe 6, 7, 8, 9. So it's a very natural. We understand that they won't have that sort of love for their country, their motherland. Rather, they have seen a atrocious regime there, and this is why probably they are feeling better here. It could be a dimension that it's my understanding that you might look at next time when you go there. Now I already left North South University and came back to North America, and it's pretty unlikely that I will be going back there for doing any other field research in the next 2 3 years. So you have the chance, and I would request you just to look at the girls, especially the adolescents and adolescent boys as well, making just equal, emphasis, putting equal importance on the stakes of both needs of both groups, adolescent boys and adolescent girls. That will bring better perspective for us, because nowadays we are trying to develop a project. I am especially trying to develop a project. I just spoke to one of my colleagues in Mayville State University, North Dakota, a few days ago, that what we have done. I had to speak there, and there I mentioned that, look, now my focus is on adolescents, especially adolescents, kids, because the whole worldwide refugee adolescents are least attended most of the time. People did not pay much attention to them. So this is Rohingya scenario. This is a new dimension which is least researched, and if we get some chance, probably we need to focus on them, because if we need to make a kind of a peace or a repatriation sort of programs or projects, if we have anything in mind to develop any project, repatriation project, or involving them for some kind of peace or treaty negotiations, if we need to train them, young folks, especially the adolescents, are the main target group that we will be focusing, because they are growing up, they're getting younger, they will be able-bodied, stout, bold, courageous, everything. They will have all the qualities. But the senior people, they will be just going downhill by age and for demographic factors. So probably we can't count much on them. We need to focus on the adolescents groups. That's my perception, my understanding. This is why this is not. Yeah, thank you very much for your reflection, but I am just trying to add a pinch of salt with your thinking and your research. If you get time next time, and if you see that dimension, that will really help us uh, to get new perspective, new and build something new that will really work out at the end of the day. Thank you very much.
Professor Professor Mohsin, do
Yes, you have
you?
rightly
Yeah.
I mean, I guess that was an observation, not a question. But you have rightly pointed out that there is this missing link because I have primarily focused on women, young girls, as well as adolescent girls and women. As I said, it's a intergenerational thing because my objective was to, in a way, to look at how one can move towards the notion towards a new notion of border and land. That was my major objective, and how to because when you talk to men, like I have talked to men, not adolescent boys, and when you talk to men, I mean, the statements that they come out from them are highly uh, masculine. Like they talk of different things. I mean, one can see the anger in them, that that is there. But and also, see, when you say about adolescent boys, why there is so much more focus on girls and women, because I'm not in any way saying that men were not targeted by the military, not at all. uh, all, because women are easy targets, they are soft targets. Like one woman said to me, look, men can go outside, they can at least stand in the sun, they can go to the markets, but we are hardly allowed to go outside or step outside of our closed, what wherever they live. But of course, the scenario is changing. So, thing is that like how to sensitize them, and because in the Rohingya community, it's such a conservative society. When, as I said, that when they initially came, they told me very clearly that it's a sin for the girls to get higher education. They only talked about religious education. And of course, they would give of their young girls in marriage. And once one does observe a lot of polygamy taking place in the Rohingya camps also. A lot of violence against women in the Rohingya camps. That is also taking place. So these are important factors. I think that is why the focus is, when you said that most of the NGOs and INGOs, they are focusing on women, they are focusing on women and girls because A, to sensitize them about their rights, B, to have a secure place for them, and also, like when they go back to Myanmar, uh, they go back as with full dignity. That is very important. So these are important factors, and they have been, like, in 2017, when I was talking to them, many of them thought that it is normal for men to beat up the wives. They didn't see any problem with polygamy. But in 2023, 2024, they were very open about it, that their men are, like leaving their wives, their polygamous lives, and they thought that it was something which was illegal. So that's why I said voice creation is important. And also, even if you talk of different things, like live, whenever, I mean, because you are focusing on peace processes, ho- when you bring in high politics, it becomes very difficult. When you bring in voices of women, the dailiness of people's lives, what matters to human beings, then I personally feel that it is easier for women to communicate with each other, and also that what matters for survival is something uh, which is important for men and women equally. But women, as the primary caregivers, they are more sensitive about it, and their voices are important. And that's why I said that it is important to include them in the peace processes and have their ideas of peace, have their ideas of security. Now, and here one would want to look at borders and territoriality at the intersection of human security and state security. This is something which I guess your different projects can highlight, that one needs to see it at the intersection. uh, and of course, it's a problem, it's a missing link that adolescent boys, I agree with you fully that they need to be taken care of, because one is seeing the kind of security problems, not only human security, but also the kind of trafficking, drug trafficking, and also the kind of uh, uh, extremist activities that they are taking part in. So this is something which one needs to take into account. And women talked about it, that in the evening our sons are taken out, uh, and there are different groups which do it. So these are very sensitive issues. I do feel that one needs to focus on it. But uh, yes, you're right. I should be looking at that also and give it a much more holistic approach. But uh, I mean, one can't deal with all the areas, and it is, as a woman, it is easier for me to have access to women and girls. And
Absolutely.
I don't know how comfortable young boys or men would be in talking to me. In 2017, they talked to me. That is okay. In 2024, also, some elderly men talked to me. But I'm a Bengali woman, going there. It's also a matter of trust building. And as I said, that it's a very conservative society. So having access also, that is also it's a methodological issue, that if they will open up to me, how much access I will have to them, how much they will communicate with me. But of course, it is something which is very important. I do agree with you.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Thank you, Professor Mohsin. We are coming to the end of the session, but I do would I would like to get your response on a very, I would say, simple question. As a researcher in this area for years and decades, what do you see in terms of leadership amongst Rohingya women? Because we are talking about peace process, and even if it comes from track 2, track 3, and grassroots level, do you see any hope that Rohingya women can take space in the discussion and dialogue like men of their community, and with particular reference to government of Bangladesh's recent I would say initiative to organize Rohingyas into one political group. And because I keep tab on the situation due to our project, so what I gathered is that so they gathered few people and did a survey or something, and kind of quasi election selection situation, and now they have a proper kind of bargaining voice. And I also interviewed some of those, but all male. I have not seen any female. So, what is your take, Professor, in terms of bringing up and grooming leadership from the women folks in the camps?
Thank you. A very important question. And as you pointed out, that you saw all males, not any women. So there is the problem. No? It's, as I said, it's a very conservative society. And when I talked about the politics of space, this is what I was referring to, that we do see the voice creation among women. And if you look at, when they had a system of marches, Uh, and we did see that some of the Majis were women, particularly among the Rohingyas. The elderly women, they play a very important role in their societal lives. Like in our Bengali families, also, you both of you are Bengalis. How elderly women, they occupy a different kind of place in our family settings, and I mean, these are important setups, and uh, since there were Majis, women Majis also, and now with the voices that are coming in, and what I hear, the changes and the transformations that I see, not only among the elderly women or the mothers, but also among the young women. I see the prospect of women leadership coming up, because this young girl said to me that she wants to be a medical doctor. And I did ask her that how come she wants to be a medical doctor. Then she told me that BRAC has given her some basic training in, health sanitation, and she's a, like, what we could say, lady health visitor. So she now aspires to be a doctor. Then this other girl told me that she's learning English because she wants to be an interpreter, and she wants to go for her higher education to Australia. So these are countries that are not unknown to them. They talk of London, they talk of Canada, they talk of Australia, and interestingly, none of them are much mentioned about any Muslim country to me. And I asked them that, would you like to go and settle in Saudi Arabia? An elderly woman said to me, yes, she would like to. But the young women didn't say anything like that. So I think they see the women, and as since you work there, they have peace ambassadors, women leadership programs. All these things are going on in the camp. So I this uh, this is also changing the perception among them, and to acquire a language which can be used as an international currency, it is an important thing. So the voice, it's a process that I see. And as you asked me that can they be involved in the peace processes, of course, grassroots, it is important. I mean, this is something we have consistently critiqued, that in the peace processes, the voices of the community women are not factored in, and we have a very typical stereotype notion of peace and security. It is important to address or factor in that what constitutes peace for them, what constitutes security for them, and it has to be a bottom up approach. And like I have been talking to many people who are in exile, either in Bangkok or in Singapore. uh, they are not Rohingyas. They belong to the different communities in Myanmar, and you all of us know that many academics are there scattered, and they do feel the need very strongly for systemic changes, for democratic processes, and they do acknowledge that what has happened in with the Rohingyas is wrong. I have talked to women also. So that's why I'm saying that if one can have open up somehow, uh, open up this dialogue between communities at the grassroots level, I guess that would be very important. I mean, and this is something that platforms like yours, the Center for Alternatives, and other platforms can keep on doing. I must mention BICE's name also over here, Research Initiatives Bangladesh, um, then BRAC and other Action Aid, all the organizations which are trying very hard towards like end to this genocide and and violence. It's not violence. I mean, violence has its limits, but genocide is something different. So that is important for us to remember.
Thank you, Professor Mohsin. Dear audience, we are coming to the end of our session. It's nearly an hour. We are talking with Professor Dr. Amina Mohsin from Dhaka, Bangladesh, and her research, her insights in bringing women's voice in the peace process, especially at the grassroots level. Given her expertise, we also asked her what does she feel with regards to the dynamics that Dr. Hilal brought into the discussion later on, and how it is kind of intersectional in terms of viewing the rights of Rohingyas inside camp, and also their rights which has been snatched away from them in Rakhine. And finally, I would like to just add a couple of concluding thoughts, which of course echoes Dr. Professor Amina Mohsin's comments that we do lack women's voice, no doubt in it. Despite women, peace and security tells us to include women, but there are a lot of works to be done. With regards to bringing women into that stage in Rohingya camps. But I think Professor Amina Mohsin rightly mentioned that things have improved quite a bit since 2017 when she first interviewed people and did some research there, and 2023 and 4. Sensitization by NGOs, INGOs definitely played a critical role in terms of improving those situations, no doubt in it. But again, remember, folks, Professor Mohsin said that it is pretty conservative society there, and the hierarchy, male and others, these are very strictly guarded. And of course, you are aware in any camp situation where nearly 1.3 million people are huddled in a very constrained space, there are problems. And we, most of us, those who are researching in this area, we are aware of it. But nonetheless, the silver lining is that Rohingya women are better receiving education and empowerment, and especially there are hundreds of projects, to the best of my knowledge, focused on gender-based violence in the camps, and that must have worked a little bit more. In this regard, just a couple of days ago, we aired one of the projects. It was undertaken by a Korean NGO, and they worked very closely with one of the women leader in Bangladesh, Rohingya herself, Razia Sultana. So some of you might know her. She is widely traveled and is a very strong voice for Rohingyas in the camps. So they were talking about how the transformation has taken place because of the support of so many governments and countries through NGOs. So with this kind of optimistic and hopeful note, we would like to conclude. And on behalf of the Institute, Professor Dr. Amna Mohsin, thank you very much for talking to us. You are one of the lone voices who is very interested about women's rights and especially Rohingya women rights in the camps. And we do acknowledge these things. And this is why we are very interested to bring you into the discussion. Please do follow us, Professor Amna Mohsin, and we will be engaging you when we visit Dhaka next time, because we are arranging a series of workshops. We would like to listen more intently about some of your suggestions. What do you want to add, and how to add really the voices of women into the peace dialogue and peace discussion. Folks, thank you once again for being with us. And Professor Amina Mohsin, it is almost night. I mean, coming to midnight, and we thank you enough for your contribution. And this episode will be staying in our YouTube channel. If you would like to share amongst your followers, that will be highly appreciated. And this is how we grow. Thank you once again, and stay well, folks, till we meet next time. And please tune in. Our next webinar episode will be aired on 11th of September. An interesting episode, I would, or I might say, because we are bringing in International Peace and Economics, one of the foremost NGOs in the world, which publishes peace indexes each year. So, and which is led by Steve Kililia. So the program manager is coming to talk to us about his idea of Marshall Plan and etc. And on 13th, we have invited Jack Leader, the famous historian on Myanmar. So we would like to invite you to join those webinars too. Thank you once again, Professor Dr. Amina Mohsin. Thank you indeed, and deep gratitude for your time and energy today. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye. Thank you.